Good morning, everyone. My name is Priscilla. I am the Artistic Program Manager of the BCB. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today to watch one of our artist talks. Leah here, she is going to talk amazing things about her work. One of the things about my job is to make sure to organize everything that's here at the program, the artistic program and the BCB. And one of the pleasures that we have is to work with amazing artists like Leah. Leah is one of the 10 award artists, and she's been working incredibly hard on this amazing piece. Come on this way.
Hello, everyone.
I would like to welcome all of you. Thank you very much for coming today. And we're going to have around between 20 and 30 minutes talk about Leah, and then we are going to open for questions from the audiences. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Leah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leah Jensen. This is my work called It Was Lost in the Move. My background, I'm from Cornwall, and for the last 10 years, I've been working in ceramics, maybe a bit more than that, actually. No, maybe about 15 years. But I came from a course in Falmouth University that was called Contemporary Craft, where you learn the principles of lots of materials. So we learned wood, metal, plastic, glass, ceramics, and then you could pretty much use whatever you wanted, and they really encouraged us to be experimental and combine things and take risks. And I think that that's probably informed a lot of the ways that I work with clay. So my usual work is absolutely nothing like this, and I wanted to use the BCB as an opportunity to have a complete step change and do something completely new. So my normal work is big pots that are really intricately carved that almost look like they're 3D printed, and they're essentially simplified Renaissance paintings, although you wouldn't be able to tell. So for this work, It Was Lost in the Move, I'm looking at something that is probably relatable to most people, unfortunately, which is housing insecurity and the housing crisis. I wanted to make the composition look stressful. So hopefully that's been achieved, and kind of like things have been abandoned and someone's rushed off. It comes from my lived experience, but it's not about me, it's about everybody and how the housing crisis affects us. Even if you don't think it affects you, it does. So this is my list of homes. So there could probably be some more on the list, but I've chosen these where I've been in a place and not known where I'm going next. So there have been other places that I've stayed in between this or lived, but I've known what's coming next, so I didn't count that. And thinking back to the work that I've been doing for the last 15 years, it's all based on the Renaissance, because that was kind of one of my favourite eras of art. In the Renaissance, they use symbolism to create a richness in the narrative, an added narrative within paintings. And these ideas are something that I've tried to carry through to this work. So you'll see some objects that are very familiar, like picture frames and drawers, but then objects that you don't really understand why they might be here, like a piece of honeycomb or a tortoise shell. So it's kind of, the idea behind this is that the audience speculate on what these things might mean amongst yourselves, and then that kind of encourages shared stories about personal experiences and things like that. So, yeah, talking about my kind of, okay, I'm recovering from a bit of brain damage, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm a bit slow sometimes. So, yeah, going back to the course that I came from and having kind of a mixed media kind of approach to things, this drawer is done with actual dovetail joinery, and it was extremely difficult, but yeah, I like it. I think it adds something to it. And the quilt in here is something I've made too. Sorry, I'm losing it a bit. Yeah, sorry, I've realised I should be talking a lot about ceramics process a lot. Thanks, Vanessa. So it's slab built and then essentially done the same way as you would do wood joinery. I cut out the dovetails, tried to fit them together. If that didn't work, tried it a bit again, shaved it down a bit, fitted it together. It was actually a nightmare. It was horrible. Didn't enjoy it, but I think it was worth it. And then, yeah, the symbolism, some of the symbolism is quite visible, but then some of the symbolism is extremely subtle. So a good example of that is this quilt. So this is a baby quilt that I've made. Every single square of the coloured fabric is painted with microscopic hazards that you find in unsafe housing. So you've got a little bit of salmonella over here, and then you've got different types of mold spores, and that's to do with, I don't know, this is quite depressing, but a lot of children die in unsafe houses because of this. That's that. What else do we have to talk about? Yeah, as I was saying, some of the symbols are very obvious. So I've got a leaflet here that has stats on Cornwall's housing crisis. So it says, in Cornwall as of spring 2025, there are 13,140 second homes, 27,222 available Airbnb listings, 489 places available to rent on Rightmove. So yeah, that's a pretty shocking statistic, and that's where I'm from.
Is that where you live now?
No, I moved to London because as much as I love Cornwall, there's not a lot of opportunity there. So it can be a bit tricky. I'd love to go back one day, but we'll see. One of the things that I enjoyed doing most is this pebble dash vase. So pebble dash is something that a lot of people that lived in council houses can really identify with, and I wanted it to kind of touch those people a little bit. And the form it's taken is kind of a classic kind of French porcelain vase, the ones that are really expensive. So it's a clash between classes and thinking about what a house means to different classes. Is it an income or is it safety? Yeah, let's see what else. And then there are other items in here that I really wanted to use to connect with the audience, kind of get them to trigger emotions and memories about their experiences with moving and the stress of all that. So that's what these laundry bags are. They make me feel so strange in a way that I can't quite explain, because of how many of them I have in my house, just in case I have to move again. They're crammed into this corner that I try not to go near because I don't want to think about it. What else? There's a slug here. Now, there's also empty snail shells, and these two aren't actually corresponding. There's a slug there because in the house I live in at the moment, we have a big problem with slugs getting in. And I stepped on one in the bathroom with a bare foot one day, and it wasn't nice. So that's nothing to do with this. Well, it is, but not really. We've got a book here it's open to the page of a cuckoo. I don't know if anyone knows about cuckoos, but they are basically giants that outgrow a nest because it's not their nest. So that's to do with parents and very grown up children outstaying their welcome because they don't really have a choice. Yeah. What else we got? Oh yeah. So in this dustpan, This is my signature for the piece. So it's the only porcelain thing. I normally work in porcelain, and it's carved in my kind of style. So I don't know if maybe I should pass it round. So that's kind of what my work's normally like. So that's the signature for the piece. And then you can't really talk about the housing crisis without talking about homelessness. And that's what this part here is about. It's kind of thinking about where do you do the most basic kind of need of like brushing your teeth when you're homeless. And I don't know, it's really upsetting to think about that. I've been homeless before, but although I wouldn't normally call it that because it feels a little bit disrespectful to people that live on the streets. We stayed at friends' houses when I was a child while we were homeless, but yeah, it happens to people more often than you think. The honeycomb, that is to do with something really important that I think is lost in the housing crisis, which is a sense of community. It's very difficult to embed yourself within a community because you have to leave, and it's to do with that. And I think that is the main thing that affects everybody, even if they don't think it affects them, is kind of the strength of a community when there's housing insecurity. That's to do with that. The wheelchair's quite an obvious one. Accessible housing is really terrible. There are disabled people that are on the waiting list for years and years and years that are they're in wheelchairs that can't find a home that they can actually get into, which is just, oh, it's so sad. It's horrible. What else? Oh, I thought of something, but then it went again. Oh, the picture frames. So for me, that's another personal thing, but I think it's also quite relatable. I've spoken to lots of renters that say, yeah, the picture frames are kind of this thing that sits in the corner and you kind of just leave it. And then sometimes before you even get it done, you have to move again. So it's, yeah, for me, they're a kind of a personal symbol. Within the picture frames, I've used motifs from kind of stately homes, the plasterwork, traditional plasterwork. So you've got, I don't know if I pronounce it right, but that's like a gullock, and this is egg and dart. I had lots of fun watching traditional plasterwork being done. It's brilliant to watch, love it. And what else? Oh yeah, this table I also tried to make like it was actually made of wood, and that was also a nightmare. So maybe I've learned that using wood techniques in ceramics isn't great, but yeah. That's the table's being propped up by a nest egg. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Leah. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for sharing all the stories because they are very personal stories and they're very touching.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to open now for questions. Please, we are recording, so if you can just raise your hands so the microphone can get to you before you ask the question. That will be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by you. There's a video that was actually on the website of you walking around markets in Deptford.
Yeah.
And I was just really sort of intrigued to find, how you explored that market and what you took away from being there. Could you just talk a little bit more about that?
So that market's very close to my studio, and it's sometimes on the commute if I go a certain way. And it's a second-hand market, kind of a flea market, and it's got these little... As you're walking through the market, sometimes you'll come across what is probably a house clearance, which is often... It looks like somebody's drawers in their shed have just been taken out and plopped down, and it's all their kind of like little bits and pieces of their life. And then occasionally you'll come across a collection of a certain animal that somebody's obviously loved and like collected little ornaments of, like a owl or something. There's loads of owls. And there's something quite sad about it for me. I don't know why, but I always feel a bit I always wonder about why these people's kind of lives are just kind of out on the street for people to rummage through. So that's kind of, I looked at the market a lot to kind of get ideas and kind of put myself in other people's shoes, I suppose. Yeah.
What will happen to the exhibition after here?
I'm not sure yet. I'm going to pack it up very, very carefully and then maybe see if I can show it somewhere else. Yeah, I don't know.
Hi, I think it's a very inspiring and wonderful exhibit, and you're to be congratulated. I was going to ask, how did you come to choose a terracotta clay, and does the absence of any glaze have a significance?
It's essentially just a kind of aesthetic choice. I just quite like raw clays, and I think there's something quite striking about raw terracotta. And I'd just been wanting to do something in raw terracotta for some time. I went through a lot of different terracottas to try and find the one. And then the only person that sold it in the country ran out. So actually there is a few that are in a different colour. I guess also there's the kind of connotation that it's very bricky. I don't use glaze because, I mean, obviously there's the technical side of it. I don't think I would have had time to glaze all this. Everything took such a long time to do. I just really like raw clay, I don't know. Even where I've got some colour, it's matte. Yeah, I used glaze just where I thought that it would add something. So in the sardine tin with the sardines, they're kind of all glossy because it wouldn't feel right if they weren't. And this had to be gold because else it wouldn't have the same kind of tacky, like, contrast. Yeah.
Firstly, beautiful work, Leah. Like, your attention to detail is just immaculate. I wanted to ask about the frames and also about the terracotta. How do you find the terracotta different to what you normally work with, and how did you make the frames?
Yeah, so this terracotta was different in the fact that it's incredibly groggy. And if you don't work with clay, basically grog is the sand and grit that you get inside the clay that gives it strength. So I never normally use a clay with that much grog in. So doing fine detail was a lot trickier, but I adapted and I think it went okay. The frames, they're mostly slab built. Some of them have got sprigs on. So sprigs are thin bits of detailed clay that you then apply to the top. And then some of them are carved. And then some of them have got modelled bits that I've put on top. Yeah, most of them are slab built. No, all of them are. Yeah, all of them are slab built. Yeah, but most of it's sprigs. This is carved. It wasn't that nice to carve because of how gritty it was, but I'm a carver, that's kind of what I do, so I had to do some carving. The honeycomb was carved, that was actually really fun to do.
When it's elsewhere,
Yeah.
if you get to show it elsewhere, and for God's sake you should, will you rearrange it, or is the arrangement fixed in your mind?
Yeah, that's still undecided. I'm planning after this to do a video so I know where everything is. When I was setting up, because the composition needed to be chaotic, I didn't have a plan on purpose. And it actually, making something look chaotic but also kind of good was actually harder than I expected it to be. So I might actually just try and do what I did here. And also stacking all this without using any adhesive, because to find an adhesive that didn't mark things was really tricky. So there's nothing, it's just up there with hope. essentially. Yeah. Did I answer everything?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I know when you do your normal work, you chart it in hours, really.
Yeah.
Where you used to kind of like add up the hours because it took just hours and hours and hundreds of hours.
Yeah, I didn't do that with this.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, you know,
No.
if you could calculate, I mean, you spent months and months.
Yeah, I've been working solidly for maybe 9 months. This cross stitch took so long. I can't tell you how many TV series are in this. There's loads. Also every single pebble here, it's all ceramic. So, and there's no glue there either. It's pushed in. I cannot believe that worked. I'm still a bit surprised. And that was the first one. I didn't do another one. So yeah, even making all those pebbles, I had to convince my partner to come and help me because I was getting a bit stressed about finishing on time. Yeah. No idea how many hours.
What are the pebbles made from? Which clays? Or is it?
So there's a porcelain. There is super white stoneware, buff school, Vulcan, and then a mystery bag of terracotta that had been stored in my garden that the label came off, so I don't know. Yeah.
I wanted to ask I don't know if you want to reveal, but what do the tortoise shells mean to you as an artist?
So the tortoise shells, essentially I wanted to create a sense of melancholy because you can't have an empty tortoise shell without something having died. As bleak as that is, that's what it is. Also, they are a home. But yeah, that's mainly about melancholy and grief and death.
And how many turtle shells have you done?
I don't remember. So the tortoise shells, I tried to find a shortcut with making them because I wanted to make loads. And that taught me that actually normal ceramic techniques are the best and just sometimes you can't create a shortcut. So they are all coil built with, like inside they've got ribs to kind of support because lots of weight on this kind of little joining bit was tough for him. So I did have quite a lot of collapses, but that's all part of ceramics, isn't it? So that's all right. And that's another thing I can talk about. So this leaflet and this box here that's printed with some text, that was a technique I made up that I think worked quite well. So that's essentially a lino print. So I did like you would carve a lino, but just use it to imprint in the clay. So you get like a really detailed, crisp line. What else?
The bristles, the brushes, you haven't really mentioned them, like, you know, every single little bristle.
Yeah,
looks like it's been
they're
hand-rolled.
all hand-rolled.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, the dustpan brush. I wasn't going to say this, but I will say it. I glued all those bristles in. So I came to install over 2 days, and I glued the bristles in the hotel in the first night because I was too scared to transport that because I couldn't. I kind of packed the brushes so they were suspended in air. But the dustpan brush is just a different shape because the bristles are coming out the side, so it was just too risky. So I joined them, I put that together. I've got another grim detail I can probably talk about. I didn't want to make it too dark, but I will. So this is my lived housing experience, and it's been kind of ongoing from birth, essentially. But there was one, hang on. The experience that really kind of put this into action was 4 or 5 years ago, when a landlord was in control of a really serious life or death decision about my health. And just the absurdity of that. It's just, this person doesn't know me and doesn't care about me, but she's got my life in her hand and she doesn't care at all. So that was kind of, the absurdity of that was kind of what got this from being a vague idea in my head to into a sketchbook, and then it started to develop. And then I applied for BCB after that. Yeah, I'm not sensitive at all. So it was COVID, and I'd been diagnosed with a brain tumour. And I was waiting for surgery, brain surgery. And the landlord, the house was ready to go, we were going to move in. And then as soon as we moved in, I had to, isolate before the surgery so that I would be safe. And before I moved in, the landlord said, oh no, the estate agent said that it had failed the electric test. But don't worry, we've got an electrician that can just come in and sort it and you can move in as planned. And the landlord refused because she would only let someone from British Gas do it because she didn't want to ruin her bond with British Gas. So then me and my partner were homeless for 3 weeks while we waited for that appointment, and my brain surgery was cancelled. Yeah. And then I risked going home to Cornwall, which was tricky because I was very ill and there was COVID everywhere. But yeah, then I did that, and then I had my brain surgery. And then while I was in chemo, she tried to get building work done in the house when COVID was still going on. Yeah, that's what happened. There's more, but that's just the bullet points. So yeah, they're kind of, I was in disbelief. I think you hear so many horror stories about housing, but then just when you think you've heard the worst, something like that happens, you just think, what's going on? And she knew that there were so little options for us that we couldn't just be like, we'll find something else. So yeah, that's what happened. And something I tried to do alongside this project at the same time was a social media account where I collected different stories from people. And I thought that it would be a nice and I had photos of these snail shells close up because there's something beautiful about them and they're kind of broken, and yeah, I think that's just me anyway that finds them beautiful. But I quickly realised that people were very reluctant to share their stories, so that part didn't work. But I think that was also a learning experience because you realise it's too painful for some people. Some people were too scared. I had quite a lot of people that were like, please don't use my name, I'm worried. And I was like, absolutely not, don't worry. So yeah, I learned something from doing that. Any other questions?
Can I just ask you a question? Yes. So from the story that you shared with us about the COVID situation, your surgery, your chemo, when did you start thinking about turning that into a project and to apply for BCB? Or it just happened last year when you just thought about it?
No, it's the way that I work on things is I use doing something creative as a way to think about other things. I talked in my video that I did for this project about it. David Lynch calls it catching the big fish. So you feed your subconscious with culture and interactions with people and reading and visiting exhibitions, and that kind of sits back there. And then when you're doing something else, like ideas kind of just surface, and the big fish is the big idea. So as soon as I got diagnosed, I did what I knew best and I started making something. Like I've always just used it as a coping mechanism. So I started sewing, and I've got another project. I've got an exhibition next year for that really cheery brain tumour cancer project. But it was while I was doing all that sewing that this idea was kind of like going around in my brain and kind of slowly came together. And then I saw the BCB thing and I just thought, I think it's probably time to apply. And I had the idea. And then I think, well, I can't speak for everyone else here, but I think everyone else's projects probably developed more as they were going along.
Thank you. So yeah, just to let you know, the project is, the call out for the award happens the year before of coming, of the biennial. And then we had 188 submissions last time and 10 artists were selected.
How many?
Pardon?
How many?
188, 188. Yeah, so it's amazing. And the process is the artists send us their proposals of what they want to do it. It's not an artwork that's already made. It's something that they're gonna try a new project, something most of the time, sometimes it's completely different like Leah normally does.
This couldn't be more different to what I normally do.
Yeah, so it's incredible, and just to see the artists pushing their boundaries every time in different ways and creating amazing projects, so, and touching everyone with the projects. Thank you very much, Leah.
Thank you, everyone.